is it Shilpa?
Yeah.
Am I pronouncing that? And Mary, thank you so much for hosting, and Tupta Norbaling. I'd really like to thank everyone and thank all of you for joining this evening. Thank you so much. Let's start with some meditation. Let's just start and bring ourselves present into the space. I also find this time slot for you, is it 6 p.m. or 5 p.m.? 5 p.m. And I find this time slot, 5 p.m., 6 p.m., 7 p.m. on a Sunday evening, is a really nice slot to just have an hour. You know, it's not that Sunday's completely over. You still have the evening, but you've been through some of the weekend, and it's just nice to have a little time to sit. Notice how things are going. So find a comfortable position, even if you're seated in a chair. And if you are in a chair, have your feet straight down flat on the floor or on a cushion under your feet that allows you to hold your posture as erect as possible. And as you lightly close your eyes, begin to deepen your respiration. And even as you are holding the spine in a sense as extended as possible, make sure your body is really relaxed. When we find the body-mind is relatively relaxed, the meditation comes organically. So allow every exhalation to release some of the tension, and allow the inhalation to bring in space to the body-mind. And as you just begin to notice the flow of the breath, you notice the body releasing a little bit more and more. And you can notice, for instance, each inhalation, just noticing that and being with that as it's happening. And then noticing the exhalation. And if you'd like, you can just focus on one of those experiences. So for instance, you just notice an inhalation. Don't worry too much about the exhalation. It will happen. What you're focused on is noticing the next inhalation. And so, in a way, you can begin to become aware of the body breathing you, the body breathing you. Your breathing is happening automatically. Just let it happen. And you can notice with one inhalation, allowing your whole upper body to move. Don't worry about the ever flowing thoughts. You just feel your body alive and breathing with each breath. And so, in a sense, you allow yourself to be in meditation rather than working to meditate, trying to meditate, or even the thought of meditating or I'm meditating. Just allow yourself to be in meditation. And from here, feel the connection in your heart as you sometimes this past week, I'm sure, past month or year, you've thought of other people and how many people are struggling right now. And some of this has affected you so much. And we pull ourselves into different camps that we like this, we don't like that. We're with this person, we're not with that person. This is terrible, this is good. And all these things affecting our very essence that allows us to be in meditation. So some quiet stillness at times, so essential right now to keep us buoyant, help us find hope, to help us balance. And so all these people that have been so disturbed this past year, mentally, physically, think of all these beings. And it's not just humans, but so many animals affected by the fires that have happened, or hurricanes, or global warming. So many things like that affect us. But just really enables compassion, loving kindness, that Buddha nature. Buddha nature. It doesn't mean you're a Buddha yet. From that place that you, and so we're just at the point, and if you want to open your eyes, it's fine, to set our motivation to think about all these beings, that this is why we're here right now. As much as we can think of, we're here for them. We're here for them. And as much as we can think about working on our own self-compassion techniques, practices, but I don't want to lose the idea that it's not just for me, but it helps me to have more compassion also for others. So just take a moment to set that motivation. And the best way we can really show up for others, for all others, and all beings, which does include ourselves, is if we become enlightened, if we become a Buddha. And it's from that place that we're unlimited in helping all beings. So really, with that motivation in mind, let's get together right now. Thank you. So please relax. You can open your eyes. Just find my, oops, that's that. Self-compassion. So let's talk a little bit more. I was just looking at just some of my notes from this longer course I sometimes do. But so it's been, and feel free to say, it's been a strong week, would you say? We have a lot to talk about tonight. It's been a strong week. I will leave more time for questions and answers. I was looking at how the stars aligned on, was it Tuesday? Tuesday, I think it was. Anyway, it was so interesting because I was personally excited about Georgia. And then Georgia got buried. It was completely buried, which might have been a good thing. It just happened. It's going to be happening. It's moving things in a certain direction. But I was so excited about that and all that that means and whatever, at least just for the time being. And so it's kind of interesting how extreme things have gotten. And so what happens is you get angry. A lot of people were contacting me, outrage, you know how it is. You were involved, I'm sure, with your friends and families of, it's in some ways kind of unbelievable, but then another way, it's not that surprising. And what do you do with your anger? So again, in Buddhism, we don't suppress the anger. And one of the notes I have in my notes about this is, when you suppress anger, let's think about it. When you suppress your anger, okay, and when you resist something, just general resistance, and I'll ask, for instance, how do you deal with change? How do you feel about change? You pretty fluid with it when things change? Are you pretty okay? I mean, I'm talking small changes, big changes. You pretty okay, or do you have a little resistance to it?
I'm doing much better with change now that I'm pretty solid in my practice. Before, not so much.
Uh-huh. Okay. Practice helps with change, right? Right. So some of you are not saying, right? But it's interesting. If you practice with the small changes, you'll get better. The biggest change is going to be your death or death of a loved one. And how do you deal with that? And I know some people right now that people I know who have gotten COVID, you know, different people I know that got COVID, and they're just swimming along, everything going great, and then they get COVID, and suddenly that's not really working for them. One of them said to me a few weeks ago, "This is really not working for me. I can't have this disease now." Well, you got it. This is how, here we are. So what do you want to do? So again, change. And the one thing I'd say right now, something I've learned, and I'm getting into it right now. You ready for this 4-letter word? I don't know how you feel about this. This is a big component of self-compassion. I'm also saying this to one person here right now who is a little bodily afflicted right now. Okay. Rest is the 4-letter word. What do you think of that? Now it's been tricky for me, rest. And the reason is I have a guru named Lama Zopa Rinpoche. I don't think he has that word, even in Sherpa or Tibetan, in his vocabulary. I'm pretty sure he doesn't, along with the word break, B-R-E-A-K. And Rinpoche and I've had laughs over the years about those words, But anyway, that's Rinpoche. That's okay. He's a holy, highly realized being. He can function on as little sleep as I've ever seen of anyone in my life. But I can't. So I, have workaholic tendencies and don't tend to rest a lot. But during the pandemic, I'm really getting into it. I'm really resting, and I'm starting to remember dreams again, and I'm having really great Dharma dreams. But it's telling me that something's shifting for me in a positive way because I'm allowing some space. And when I say rest, my tendency is I'm not a really lazy person. So it's not like I'm just lolling around all day watching TV, but I'm really allowing maybe an extra hour in the morning, sometimes where I'm reading in bed, which is a luxury. Sometimes I'll be like, I should get to all those emails and do that. And then I think, you know what, I'm going to do it tomorrow. And I walk away from the computer. So allow that space of the rest is a huge component of self-compassion. And you want to give yourself a rest also from the extremes of the delusions operating in the resistance. We're resisting all the time stuff. So I'm using this word more and more, allowing. What are we allowing? What are we not allowing? You know, I allow myself to walk away from the computer. There were some years, not long ago, a few years ago, I had to finish those, you know, it would be 2 a.m. No, I just want to get through that thing of emails. I just want to have that, you know, I want to whittle down that email list. I have to do it, 2 a.m. You know, crazy. I burnt myself out. So is that helpful when you think of it? What can you allow? And here's one of the notes I wrote in my thing. When you suppress, when you resist something, okay, and you're suppressing something, it goes to the basement and it lifts weights, doesn't it? It becomes even stronger, that kind of tendency, okay? So this is about kind of looking at developing some knowledge and some skills, okay, but also to face not only resistance on a deeper level, the suffering, okay, but you're facing it from a position of strength, okay? So, and I can't also say, I don't have the intuition to say it's safe for you to face this difficulty and this suffering in your life. Some people have had incredible traumatic abuse. And because I don't know all of you, I don't know specifically for you. Are you ready to face that suffering? Okay. Is it safe for you to turn towards the pain? But a lot of times that's the practice, is turning toward the pain. Okay. And we are all sensitive beings to certain degrees, even if we're not showing it. Okay. So learning yourself to develop your own intuition, developing those instincts for you to develop, for you to distinguish between what's safe for you, okay, what is safety and what is discomfort. Okay, and feeling vulnerable or uncomfortable, it doesn't necessarily mean you're unsafe. You know, we talked a little bit about vulnerability last week. It doesn't really mean that you're not safe. The vulnerability gives me messages, a little bit stronger. Pay attention. Sorry for that interruption, but we're just talking about, you know, for you to develop that own strength and resilience yourself to know when I can face the pain and go in there. And so again, we're used to tolerating all kinds of difficulties anyway to lead a meaningful life. So we get that. So with self-compassion, in some ways, it's the most natural thing in the world. It's the most natural thing in the world. Our culture, though, sometimes doesn't feel that we deserve to practice this with ourselves like that. And so, like for instance, if you cut yourself, you immediately go and you put, you know, you clean it out and you put an antiseptic on it, you put a Band-Aid. It's like a natural process that you do to take care of yourself, okay? But then somehow emotional well-being, we don't tend to do that. We don't tend to do that. And we're all a little bit different. So as a result, there's some people that go to great extremes taking care of other people at the sacrifice of themselves, right? And then there's some people we know more ego-driven, that it's all about them. So we have different levels, okay? But we also want to understand is one of the reasons that we have, I also would say, this divisiveness on the planet in general, or why delusion comes up. Obviously, Buddhism talks about fundamental ignorance, not having a direct perception of emptiness. So we've heard about that. We know about that. But there's another thing of this instinctive quest for survival over someone else, came from our own primordial existence. Was when you were fighting saber-toothed tigers to get your food or to survive, there's that instinctual thing. But now what we want to do is, as we fast forward into modern times, we're not fighting off things like that. I mean, it seems like we're fighting a different kind of presence at times, but really we're not living in that kind of world. So as a result, we can start to be gentler beings with ourselves. And again, this is not about what other people are doing. And these people, and you can even look at the siege of the Capitol and those people. And you know, I watched some interviews with some of these people that were there, and you know, you could say, well, that's not me. I'm not like those people. Right? But it's not about them. It's about you taking care of your mind. So don't get flummoxed and don't get imbalanced by their situation. And where you start labeling them, in negative ways. Okay, that just interferes with what you're doing. Don't worry about them. It's about you and your mind, how you want to show up with your mind. You taking care of yourself makes you a bigger, wholer person with what Lama Yeshe would call totality heart. Totality heart. So again, in using mindfulness, we were doing some exercises last week, just basic mindfulness when discomfort appears for you. Number one, first exercise is can I just be aware of it? Okay. But what happens is rather than just sitting with our mindfulness with it, again, we try the resistance, we deny, we lash out at people, we fold in on ourselves. We have all these other things that don't really help. And what if I can just face that right now, I'm uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable right now. That's all. I'm uncomfortable. So mindfulness will say to you, feel the pain. Okay. Self-compassion says, cherish yourself in the midst of the pain. Cherish yourself in the midst of the pain. So you have two ways to say you're wholeheartedly. You can, a lot of people I find, because of a lack of mindfulness, the pain is there and best that I attack outside because it's coming from the outside. It's coming from the outside, okay? That's not us. We don't need to go there. I'm aware life in samsara, again, is painful. It's uncomfortable. It's broken. It's imperfect, okay? It doesn't mean I can't be happy. Sometimes understanding the nature of samsara more, I can be happier because I'm not flailing out expecting everything to be perfect and everyone to be wonderful. I acknowledge that there are problems and I can still find the beautiful rise of the sunset every morning, like that, or the ocean or whatever speaks to you, the beauty of a flower blooming, the simplicity, because I know the flower's impermanent. I know it's going to die at some point, but right now I can just appreciate that glory of it. And then with the pain again, please, with self-compassion, cherish yourself in the midst of the pain. Cherish yourself in the midst of the pain. So if you can't be present with difficult moments, the chances are it's hard to be present with the best moments of your life either, right? And we want to be present with the best moments of our life, okay? So you can develop a process, and it's because it's January, people have these New Year's resolutions. So what about developing a process of establishing a new relationship with your thoughts and feelings? Okay, rather than directly challenging them all the time. This isn't about directly challenging them all the time, but having a new relationship with thoughts and feelings. So I'll watch, I noticed this week, and I was watching this one video somebody sent me of the people that, entered the Capitol. And I noticed some really negative thoughts come up in my mind, like really like, and I just watched the little bubbles arise. And I didn't have to get down on myself about it. That's like directly challenging myself. You're a nun, you shouldn't think those thoughts, right? So my new process, I mean, I've been doing this for some time now. It's not a new process, but this relationship I have with my thoughts and feelings are, sometimes I have those thoughts. And then I'll add another word that I really like and I use a lot. I use these two words a lot more and more. When I mentioned allow, one word, but the other word is curiosity. Curiosity. So you're in a state, you're in a mood and you're sailing downhill and it's not going well. And suddenly something's happened and you're really, really stressed and you're really upset and this is not what you planned. Okay? Get curious about it because it's happening. It's unfolding. You're in it. Okay? So you're in it. My mindfulness says I'm uncomfortable and my self-compassion says I'm going to be kind to myself right now. I need some help. I need some extra kindness. I need the really good cup of coffee right now. I need the extra sleep tonight. I'm going to go to bed an hour early. Or I need that special food, or I need to get out and walk in the sunshine today. I need that. That's my kindness to myself. And then when I come back, I'm going to deal with this thing that's going on? Or maybe I just need to take a nap. Or actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the computer and stop the emails, and I'm going to finish reading that book tonight that I really wanted to do today. Okay, so self-compassion, taking care of yourself in the midst of it. And then get curious because you're caring for yourself, there's some space in your mind to look at what's going on. What is happening? What's the stress about? Is this a habitual pattern that you do on and on? Did you forget that you were going to die? You're going to die one day. Did I forget that suddenly? That everything's impermanent? Yeah. So then you can analyze a little bit more of going in with, and for me, I was just watching the thoughts arise of these people. I can say they're unbalanced, or this is happening to the government, and what a shame. But then I can go back and say, wait, there's karma for all of us to be in this. If you live in the United States, so we've got a certain karma unfolding of what was kind of going on the last few years and what we're moving out of right now. And suddenly there's a little shift to something different, if you want to just say politically. Okay. But if you go back over time, there's always these shifts. It's, the politics swings one way and then it swings another way. And then it goes the other way and people get tired of that and it goes the other way. So am I so surprised about that? No, so the main thing is to invest in my Dharma practice, to keep my heart open, to figure out how can I best serve myself and others in this process. Serving myself with the bigger motivation, of course. Serving myself with the bigger motivation. And you can make plans to do what you want. So again, as we came into the election last year, the election was November, but I, thought for myself, here's the pandemic, I'm not traveling now. I'm rooted home. I happen to be in a state that what they called a swing state, right? But because it was a pandemic and because of all the new tech systems, all these things, people writing postcards and writing letters and to what they called swing states, right? But you could also make phone calls to different voters, and you didn't need to be in Pennsylvania, you could be anywhere. And because I used to do that professionally, I thought maybe I should make phone calls and go old life to have a past life. And I made a decision with myself. Again, do you want to be active in a certain way? It's up to you. There's many ways you can serve, right, and help. And I thought about it for a while because I'm like, well, I have my Dharma practice and there's a lot of things I want to do with that. But I thought, you know what? I'm going to give it a month. So I made phone calls for a month and I did the training, an hour training. It's all online. And actually I learned a lot. It was so cool the way they do it compared to the old fashioned way we did it with dial telephones. Can you imagine? Dial telephones. So this was a really cool system. I met some really great people through the process and then met some really great people that I called. We called Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Arizona. Those were most of the calls I made. And I just gave it a month, and I gave it a month long before people voted, because once the early voting got started, that's what I wanted to do. And I could do it whenever I wanted to do it. Sometimes I just did it like a half an hour and then I stopped. And then a few days later, another half an hour. And if it went well, I did an hour, stopped. That's what I wanted to do, and there's other things. You can give money to a food bank. And I was buying some food for a food bank and delivering it. And so you make your things, if you feel like instead of just arguing about the affairs, you have a choice to get involved, right? And I think if you don't really want to get involved and you don't want to do things like that, then let's stop talking about it and let's do our practice. Make yourself whole and calm and peaceful and happy as you can be, to wholeheartedly embrace our differences. And when people are saying things that are really, really different from me, and when somebody might be emotionally attacking us or physically attacking someone, how can I keep myself peaceful? Look at the discomfort, take care of myself in the face of that, and then learn how to move forward in a really compassionate, peaceful way. Okay. And you become that example. You're the one creating that pathway that people suddenly see it and get behind you and want to support and go, wow, That's impressive. How is she doing that? How's he doing that? Okay, so that really speaks to people, I think, when you set an example, whether it's just your family, your housemates, your partner, your kids, your parents, your neighbors, is you just set that example. And I'm not anybody special, but I live in a neighborhood that's not Buddhist at all. It's somewhat conservative, suburban neighborhood. I have wonderful neighbors. And somehow when I first moved here, I felt really kind of odd, and they'd see me in my robes and my shaved head. And then one by one, I got friendly with them. They invited me to their house. I invited them, like we got to know each other with all of our differences and all of our different stories. And now I'm kind of a fixture on the neighborhood. They know me, I'm accepted, they like me. I mean, for me to go out of my door today and have the kids playing in my driveway. We have a bunch of young kids, and they're all in the driveway, and one of them will run up to me, and it's always so hard with COVID, because he'll run up to me, the 6-year-old boy, like, Amy, with his arm, like ready to throw his arms around me. And it's been all I could do to not be hugging these kids. Okay, one time he hugged me. What could I do? But so again, like there's ways that we bridge those differences, and I don't really care who they voted for. And I saw the signs on some of their lawns. I don't care. That doesn't keep me away from them. And because they're good people, there's always a good person in there, just like you, in your heart. So that thing of when you have adversity to someone or something, move in close. Move in close. It's easy to keep somebody at bay, and these pictures of the people that we see in different things, like if you really sat down with one of these people and you had a cup of coffee and just started talking and had breakfast together, it'd be a completely different experience. And you'd probably find some things you have in common. So I just looked, the time goes so fast. Please, do you have any questions about anything in general?
Venerable Amy?
Yes.
Venerable Amy, it's Mary. If you had a chance, if you could just say a little bit more about Lama Yeshe, was it total heart or the complete heart? What did you refer to?
Sure, he had this wonderful term, totality heart. Totality heart. I really like that. Of like, for me, sometimes if I get afraid, I don't get afraid of a lot of things, but occasionally there'll be something and you go, oh. And like I got a little jolt. Actually, this is how I found out about the siege of the Capitol. I was working, I was doing something on the computer, and I think I was actually teaching a class or something in it, and my niece WhatsApped me in a chat. My niece is 29. She lives about 40 minutes from me. We're very close. And I got this text from her, message that said, do we need to evacuate? And sometimes she's flippant, like sometimes it's sarcastic, but I was, and it just caught me off guard. And suddenly I had this little start in my heart of like, did I miss a weather forecast? Like I thought, is there some storm coming? Because one winter I did lose power for 4 days in this house. And I was suddenly like, did something happen? And then I decided to turn on the TV, and then was suddenly, there it was in my face and if you're a younger person, I think that's hard. I think it's hard for the younger generation, to be 29. So again, totality heart is a way to keep the space open in the heart. Like you notice the start and you can go, it's okay. Can I keep, loving myself and loving others? Can I keep that space of mind and practice that regardless of what's happening sometimes? And again, then in that space, because of the good motivation, the big motivation, then you check, on some levels, am I safe here? Is, whether you're in front with an abuser, no, this is not safe, then you take yourself away from that. Or is it just a situation where I'm feeling vulnerable? That's a little different. Let me get curious and look at the vulnerability. So totality heart's a nice one, I think, to remember.
Well, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Larry.
Larry,
Are you
hi.
in Springfield right now?
What's that?
Are you in Springfield right now?
I am. Larry, are you in Delaware?
Yeah. Here, I'm right down the street from you, right down the road, rather.
It's so
Right down
good.
the
It's so good to see you.
Yeah, likewise. Anyway, I wanted to know, I have a habit of internalizing things that happen, so that in the end, to many people and to myself, sometimes it feels like I'm indifferent, or it seems like I'm indifferent to the events that are happening when people are like raging around me. You know, they're excitable, and I sort of like seem nonchalant or indifferent to the events that they're so excited about, or so angry about, or so upset about. I like to think that this is a result of my practice. For over 10 years, I've been practicing. So, but I also think sometimes that by my internalizing it, it builds up, and I don't have like the I guess the tools for release as immediately as I would like it to be. If you're understanding me correctly, I'm not sure. But I want to know, are there any Buddhist techniques for releasing the internalized emotions or feelings of anger or sadness or whatever comes up that might help me expedite it a little better?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. A few things we would do purification practices I would recommend. And because we really try not to bottle things up and not to repress it, but certainly there is a level where we don't want to act out. And if you're in the moment with people raging at you or attacking you or criticizing or just acting out, we right there don't want to be exploding on them, verbally, whatever, emotionally. So I like to take it back and do Vajrasattva practice. In the morning, I like to do prostrations, the 35 Buddhas. And these are purification techniques that I can imagine it flowing out of me. And you can specifically pinpoint and just say, oh, that conversation I was in with that woman the other day, wow, that was, and let me just wash out. I actually, I really try not to do this. I go on social media to post that I'm teaching mostly. And lately I got on with a couple political things because I just couldn't hold back. It's part of my nature. But there's a little division of people I went to high school with. And they're in two different camps, obviously. So some friends of mine that are in one camp, we've been discussing, and I tend to not engage and get into things with other people on these things, but I couldn't hold back. And one of these friends who's just been really irritating a lot of people, and I made a comment and said, I said, boy, you really drank the Kool-Aid, is what I wrote down for him, which, can rile people. I didn't mean to, but I was just like, I'm so over this so that I had to do Vajrasattva practice with. I specifically thought about like doing that he didn't respond. He wasn't, he and I like each other, but I had to do Vajrasattva practice to really let it go, that the annoyance I had, and that the thing of the level of what I might say of sometimes just all of our ignorance that has created this for us. So I would do some kind of purification practice like that. Meditating on the emptiness of it is the best. To meditate on the emptiness, release like that.
In that moment, though, I've read some scriptures that say that in that moment it's best to be just as quiet and as silent as a log or as a piece of wood. When it's happening, at the time that it's happening, it's best to be just as silent or as quiet as a piece of wood.
Yes, I would say in the moment, you don't want to engage negatively. So if you can, but you have to be very careful in yourself. If you're penting up a lot of anger and you're really resentful and you're not dealing with it, that can be harmful. So again, based on self-compassion techniques, I need to release it at some point. And on an internal level, I'm going to be doing some sort of Buddhist practice, whether I'm reciting mantras, meditating on emptiness, doing Vajrasattva practice with a visualization and other visualizations you can do, Medicine Buddha, different things that can release. And then on another level, you can go out for a walk, take a bath if that relaxes you, play a musical instrument if you have some, do some yoga, exercise. something that also can release. So we can go at it both ways, but if you're not doing some kind of internal mechanism to release on a spiritual level, the external only goes so far. Does that help, Larry?
That helps. Yes.
And
Can you hear me?
again, where are you located again? You did
Newark, Delaware.
Newark. That's
Newark,
right,
Delaware.
Newark. That's so weird. I just had a dream about Newark, Delaware last night. Wow,
That was
that's
me.
okay. I guess because I was
I was
supposed to
sending
see you. It's great. It's been a while since I've seen you.
This is Heather. We share a background in politics. I worked for Congress for a number of years as a press secretary, and so my speech is a really important thing for me to work with. And over the events of the last few days, I've really been struggling with finding equanimity. And so one of the ways that I have been trying to work with that is I think about my little nephews that are 6 years old and 4 years old. And I love them both equally. And as much,
You're breaking up a bit. I'm sorry.
I don't know if I'm breaking up for everybody, but I was saying that I have two little nephews that I love equally and as much as anything in the world. And when one of them hits the other one, it's really important that I let the one that hit know that that's not okay. But it's equally important that the one that was hit knows that that's not okay. And so I've been really trying to think about how to use my voice in that way, because I think it's very natural, whether I like it or not, that I have more in common with the people that raided the Capitol than I do with a Black person moving through this country, because I am a white person moving through this country. And so when I try to find what is the other point of view that I need to be in touch with, I really feel, I mean, it'll make me start to cry. I think we just so naturally gravitate towards those that look like us. And I'm trying to use my speech in a way that is saying it's not okay that these people were hit as much as anything. And I don't know if you have advice on how best to work with that or how to do that.
Okay, I'm not sure if I missed. So you're talking about your 4 and 6 year old, one hitting the other. You were talking about, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, as a metaphor, as a, I mean, that's a real thing, but it's like, it's just as important to tell the one you're not allowed to hit, but it's also as important for the other to know it's not okay with me that you were hit, and so how do I use my speech? Does that make sense? I'm sorry if I'm not being clear.
Yes, no, absolutely. Yeah. But I guess I'm not sure about as far as the people that were attacking the Capitol. I mean, looking like us and not looking like us. I mean, and I'll put it this way, and I don't mean to be glib, but all I call him is the Viking horned one, if you know what I mean. The guy that had the headdress, I don't know what he was wearing, but I don't know, I can't identify with him. I could sooner identify with some of the Blacks in my area, or than that kind of guy, and the people wearing the Nazi T-shirts. So that was really hard for me. The anti-Semitic scenes that I saw. I don't know if you're aware of what some of the T-shirts meant. That under Camp Auschwitz, did you see that T-shirt?
Yeah, of course. And
Under that T-shirt, not just you, I meant under that T-shirt was, I forget the exact words, but it's what's on the gate at Auschwitz, like work makes progress or something. I mean, these are Nazis, some of these people, white supremacists. It's really frightening that this is kind of okay. And one of them had a T-shirt, if you saw it, that said 6MNE, 6 million not enough is what that means. 6 million Jews being gassed is not enough.
right.
So I can't really, I don't think they look like me. I can't identify with them, but how do we deal with that, you're saying?
What I'm saying is that, I've done, since I left Congress, I've done a lot of work with the racial equity in education. And obviously I don't identify with the guy who dresses up like a goat and storms the Capitol. That's not me, right?
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh at it, but it was so extreme, yeah.
Yeah, but what I do know is that there are things about me as a white woman in this country that I just take for granted. Like if I started running towards the Capitol, I'd be much less likely to get shot dead than, you know, one of my colleagues that's an African American woman. And so I just want to continue to interrogate, you know, what am I putting my energy towards understanding, if that makes sense. So I don't know that I'm making
Well,
much sense, but
Well, I mean, I think the main thing is in the face that I do a lot of diversity work as well, and have for many years. And it's kind of, again, the totality hard to bring it back to that. Of, can I stay centered and balanced in looking at my privilege? Let's say if that's something you're looking at, or looking at, can I, do I need to volunteer for a group? How are you teaching your kids? What are you imparting to your kids as far as how they are as white, if they're white, on the planet, and how they can go about being more aware as kids, being as they grow up. But it's a bigger thing. Socially conscious, it's a bigger thing. For me, it's also bringing my reusable bags to the grocery store. I can't deal with people with the plastic bags, the single-use plastic bags. They should be banned from the country. I feel so strongly about that for the planet. But there's people loaded up with a cart, a huge cart full of plastic bags. So that's something then you teach your kids. So you teach your kids about equality. You bring them to marches if you want to, but you have to bring them to marches with the right motivation, right? Like I go to marches sometimes, and and people have heard me say this before, I really try to go with a motivation of love and connection, not hatred and divisiveness. And if people start negative chants, I don't participate. I don't participate. I want to have something positive that I'm saying, and positive that I'm, and you can make signs with your kids, some kind of positive message that's creative. So I think we all have, if you choose to have a responsibility to do it, and then through the learning, like with diversity work, I've read so many books that educated me, whether it's Waking Up White and Between the World and Me, and I can't even think of all of them now. I've read so many different books. So it educated me to be able to occasionally, if I'm in, it's less so with the pandemic, but before the pandemic, if I see it as an experience, small or big, of racial inequality, can I have the presence of mind to quickly say something in a compassionate way, And I just try. Sometimes it goes by me too quickly, and I missed it, and I later go, I should have said something. I'm going to try as much as I can the next time to step up. I think that's the best we can do. But I feel for me, it's got to come from compassionate wisdom. I mean, as much compassionate wisdom as I have. And we use that as a motivation. Does that help at all?
that's wonderful. Thank you so much. It's super clear.
You try your best, right? Try our best. Thank you.
Okay, we have one more question from A. Vishal.
Hi, I had to log in twice because my computer froze. I couldn't do anything. So I have a question about, you mentioned before about wanting, I can turn on my camera, thinking about it, about wanting something. Okay, so you mentioned wanting to be reborn in a different type of realm. And my conflict with wanting things and is with wanting and just letting life flow. And like sometimes we want things and that helps us and that serves our growth, and sometimes we want things and it's not really coming from wisdom. And so learning, it just seems like there's this like in between place where I'm learning how to figure out how to sit in that balance, because the world is constantly encouraging you to want certain things, and some of that stuff is helpful. It does support your learning and exploration and yada yada, and some of it is just hype, and it's just not for you, it's for the other guy, the guy next to you, or and so there's this uncertainty or lack of clarity about how to sit in the center of that. Or maybe it's not the lack of clarity, it's just the discomfort of that. So I don't know if how you work with those.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, we live in the desire realm, Buddhism says. So its nature is I want, I need, I have to have. And so I think I just look at that, and I have to say over the years, I've just noticed for years now, less is more, right? Less is more. I mean, I just had a great project. I was so excited to be home after 16 years, honestly, on the road, traveling most of the time. And I have been doing, partial clean outs of things and getting rid of. And I just love it. It feels so good to pare down. And whether it's Dharma notes, 30 some years of Dharma notes, and what happened is a friend of mine passed away some years ago, a nun. And one of my friends was cleaning out her stuff and said, I had to go through all her Dharma notebooks. And she actually looked, and I thought, I don't want anybody having to waste their time doing that, looking through my Dharma notebooks as if there's something. So I just took care of it. And it all got scanned into my computer, and it was a project. So I think when you get into when you want a material thing, if you're talking about that, is look at, is this something I really need? Or is it just look at the influences around you? And I just find, you can always want something, but then it just gets complicated. So can you just be satisfied with what you have? And then if it's other things like qualities you'd like to develop, I think if they're good qualities, you can aspire. There's some people I see in my life that really inspire me. And that's something good to shoot for on that level, if it's something worthwhile. Does that speak to what you're wondering?
yeah, I mean, I think it's just the practice. I guess is like the practice of actually just engaging with those edges and going back and forth and figuring out what it is that because I guess when stuff is pulling on you, also the negative of it is also pulling on you at the same time, and we have to differentiate. And so when we get clarity and then we make right choices, the negative stops being a problem, because then
Right.
we sort of get that arrow focus. And maybe I have a preference for that arrow focus. I like to have clarity, and so when I don't have clarity, it's like uh, I I feel like I'm in the between. I'm in the middle of things. I'm like caught in between, and um, I guess there's always something that I'm navigating in that way, like um, making choices in my life. Like I made this choice to stop doing things, to make myself, because I hated that every time I was doing stuff, there was an obligation quality to it. And I could have chosen to sort of develop a positive mind and a friendly mind towards doing things, but there was just too many obstacles and too much mind stuff in there that I thought it'd be easier to drop it, and then I'm having to rebuild from scratch. And so I'm going into this, rebuilding has been a very slow process for me. And there's so much learning that has to come for me to take each step. And I think it's what I'm really realizing it is that it's really just my history of programming, where I have
Yeah.
learned to be
Well,
so cautious.
sure, sure. I mean, we all have things like that. And I think I mean, on some level, the more I practice Dharma and get into my practices, the less I'm kind of ruminating through my mind about myself and my stuff. It's like, let's just get down to the practice and get going on it now. Because it kind of takes away a lot of the other problems and ruminating in the mind over and over, second guessing ourselves. And that gets really tiring for the mind. With the Dharma, you start developing immediately, I mean, not immediately, but these instincts right away of what's good and what's not. Like I really need to be doing this. This is great. And it doesn't come from obligation like that. So I think also keep it simple, without having to dissect every single thing you're doing as well. That can complicate things as well. We do, and also know it's in samsara. There's always going to be stuff like that in samsara, decisions and choices. But hey, let's be happy that we have choices, right? There's some people I know, they don't really have choices about their lives. So we have choices, and the choices sometimes I think about the multiplicity of options that creates a lot of confusion for people, a lot of complication. So I think if we get back into just gratitude for all that we do have and things, we can be much more satisfied with what we have, and it becomes simpler. Does that make sense?
Yes, I don't think I have an issue with spinning or
I just want to
ruminating.
give somebody else a chance because we're over time right now.
Yeah.
So I don't mean to cut you off. It's just that we're a little bit late and there might be somebody else that might have a question, if that's okay. But we can continue next week. How does that sound?
No, no, it's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else?
There are no more hands up unless someone wants to ask.
Okay.
Okay.
And how do you pronounce your name? Avishag?
Yeah, Avishag.
Avishag? Avishag, so do you have something you would like
And
to
Venerable
finish
Amy,
with,
thank you
and then
so
we'll
much for your
dedicate?
time.
Sure.
No, no, I think it's just I'm just working through that, and there's that frustration, and sometimes maybe talking about it or hearing something would be useful. So it was more
Sure.
just thank you.
Sure. I don't know specifically, it's a little vague what you're talking about, so I'm not sure if it's really helpful what I'm addressing.
Okay.
If you
Yeah,
want to be more
it's
specific, that sometimes
well,
is a little easier.
it's hard because I'm not speaking about a specific issue in terms of physical conflict. It's more just generally desiring things, and so I'm very aware of my desires and patterns, and I can
And
easily
are you
conform.
desiring, are you talking about stuff, desiring material things?
No, desiring directions in my life and which way to go and how to go about it, and not how to go about it in a technical way, but more in from like deep, you know how each layer of engagement has more subtlety, and you're dealing with life in a more subtle way. So I feel like it's more just how about opening up to the next openness of life, and then experiencing the resistance from the patterns that I have.
Right, and so also don't, I do consults with people as well at times, and so just be cautious that you're living fully in the process. I know people that keep waiting for the basic thing to be unfolded for them, and they've been waiting 40 years for it, and they feel like they can't really move through life and get on with it. So do make sure you're living fully and appreciating the moments as they're unfolding, especially the glorious moments right now as they're unfolding, as you uncover what you feel is the best direction. And if you follow developing the good heart, you'll never go wrong. So let me stop there because I know we're over time. This has been fascinating and interesting. Thank you for all the comments and questions. We can also continue next week. And so please, if you can this week as a little homework, if you'd like, meditation, like bring it in if you can every day, just as we were letting the breath breathe you. Find the stillness. It's so empowering and so useful, where you look at the siege at the Capitol, you might watch some TV about it, turn it off. Or you're finding yourself a little unbalanced one day, 10 minutes, sit down, be still, be quiet, get in touch with the good heart. It's always available for you. And maybe again, just focus on that inhalation. Give yourself a little break on the exhalation. It's going to happen anyway. Focus on the inhalation. And eventually the breathing just starts happening, and allow yourself to be. Just try that, allowing yourself to be in meditation. So let's dedicate. Thank you so much for joining. I'd like to dedicate whatever positive energy we've created, whatever merit right now, to our well-being. Again, our being kind to ourselves in this process, kind to ourselves in all the things that are flurrying around us in this external reality, whether it's in Washington, D.C., whether it's in your hometown or in the supermarket, it doesn't matter. All of that, you can still find the stillness and develop and your good heart to continue to practice kindness with others, and let that roll into your practice to help you fully wake up to become that Buddha. So then you can be unlimited in how we are with all living beings, that we have the most capacity to serve all of them. So I'd like to just dedicate in that way. And for all the beings on the planet with COVID, may they be healed instantly. For all the beings with serious, serious illnesses as well. And for those that have passed away recently, can they take a precious human rebirth to get enlightened to benefit all living beings, and for the long life of our precious teachers. Please enjoy.